What's going on, everybody? It's Matt and Coach TheFFMediators, and we are back for episode 3. And today we are going to go through the week 1 matchups, kind of give a full review on what our thoughts were from the different games, and kind of walk through what this means for the players as Dynasty fantasy football and what we're going to do going forward. So, Coach, what were your thoughts on week 1?
Man, I think overall week one was a downer. I mean, there was not a whole lot of exciting fancy numbers flying around there in week one, especially compared to 4 or 5 years ago when there were a lot more touchdowns scored. I think we're seeing the effects from the preseason and people just not getting a lot of reps, and it was just overall a pretty ugly fantasy week.
And it wasn't just struggles from the young guys, it was struggles from the vets, too. I mean, we saw that in every window where teams we thought should look a lot stronger did not look great at all. And, there's some concern for various reasons, whether injury, like you said, repetition. I mean, we'll see. There's a lot to unpack here. So I think we just jump right into it. And let's start with the Cardinals and the Bills. We had the Bills winning 34-28. Josh Allen looked like a king. He was running all over everybody.
Well, oddly enough, this was one of the games where there were points scored. Yeah, Josh Allen was fantastic. I thought Kyler Murray was really good. Um, James Connors clearly is the bell cow in Arizona. Shakir got in the end zone. I mean, there's a lot to like there, especially with the youth in a guy like Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman. Like they got a lot of usage there. I mean, there's a whole lot moving forward. But you're right, Josh Allen is still he's still the guy. Like if you're a dynasty team and you've got Josh Allen, you are set.
The big takeaway I had too from this game was James Cook with 19 carries. That's what I wanted to see from James Cook. High volume.
Hmm.
No, he didn't score, but he had over 70 yards. When you mix in the receptions, I mean, he's a running back I want on my team. He's someone, if I'm a contender, I'm going after because I can have him for the next few years. And I think this Bills offense is going to run the ball because they're good at it.
Yeah, and he had 3 catches, but I mean, I think there's a world where he can average 4 or 5 on a lot of nights, and
Hmm.
he plays a big part. A guy like Greg Dortch, I mean, he's got a lot of targets for Arizona. I mean, that's a guy you can still probably go out and get relatively cheap that might be able to help you in a few weeks,
Eight
dynasty wise, or
targets,
maybe moving. Yeah, maybe even moving into next year. I mean, that's a flex play sitting out there and over the
and,
next year or two, possibly.
and he's cheap. He's cheap. And
Yeah, absolutely.
too, you know, you've got Michael Wilson out there. He scored on his lone reception for just about 5 yards, I believe. Heck of a
Yeah.
DFS play. I didn't get a goose egg. I got 7 points, but um,
Right.
this offense played well. Like you said, Kyler looked good. Do you have any concerns with Marvin Harrison?
Oh gosh, man, what I saw, I felt like, man, that's a guy like I'm really a little bit worried about. Now, obviously, there's a lot going on, first game jitters, things like that.
Mhm.
But there were times where I just didn't see the athleticism I thought I saw when he was at Ohio State. So that would make me a little bit nervous as a
And I think they'll
Harrison
find a
owner.
way to work him in. I'm not too concerned. That's kind of something we should say. It's week 1, so let's not overreact. I know we're going to be very
Mhm.
high on the things that we think are positive and probably brush off the things that are negative. But it is week 1, so we'll see what sticks with week 2. Marvin Harrison, 1 catch for 4 yards. Is that what you wanted? Absolutely not. But will that be the consistent production of Marvin Harrison? I don't think so. I think they're going to make it a point to get him the ball. So I expect a turnaround. I don't know if I would expect some big explosive game of 180 yards next week, but I mean we do need to remember it's a rookie.
Well, and there are a lot of these numbers that, if we're being honest, will mean absolutely nothing in a few weeks. So it's week one. Things are weird. The defense is always in a better spot than
Hmm.
the offense initially. Things will get better on all fronts. So some of it's just going to be a waiting game.
Any concern, Coach, with Dalton Kincaid? He had 1 catch for I believe 11 yards. Um, Maybe one more target, so 2 targets total.
Well, the concern with Dalton Kincaid to me is that Josh Allen doesn't necessarily love throwing the ball to tight ends. Like he never really has, and he's capped in the red zone by Josh Allen running the ball. Like
Yeah,
when
which
they
we
get down there
saw.
inside the 10, Josh Allen's going to run it in.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it's
And
nerve-wracking.
too, I saw one play on X, I can't remember who shared the video, but there were 3 Cardinal defenders just attached to, Kincaid's hip. So, I do think it was the plan to scheme him out and kinda force the young and unproven guys and Shakir and Curtis Samuel and Matt Collins is a name to monitor going forward, y'all. Like, he's not the best name out there, but, I mean, he was involved. He had 2 targets. I mean, he scored. So it's going to be
Mhm.
another person that could vulture the touchdown. So it's something we need to think about and kind of see how his role goes forward.
Yeah, totally. Stash and play, see what happens.
Dash and play. All right. Well, let's move on to our next game. This is probably one of the most surprising matchups of the week. We had the Bengals taking on the Patriots, and the Patriots went into
Oh,
Cincinnati and whooped them. And not by the
yeah.
score, but just gave them everything they wanted. The Bengals couldn't do anything. The Patriots win 16-10, and frankly, that score doesn't even indicate how bad the Bengals looked.
Yeah, really, really strange, right? Like, I will say, fantasy wise, like one of the things I was really waiting to see was what's going on in the Bengals backfield. Um, but Zach Moss, I mean, a little bit of a timeshare, but Zach Moss definitely got more of the work than Chase Brown, who has been the darling of the offseason dynasty wise. So that's something to still keep an eye on.
But there just wasn't a lot of work to go around is the problem too. I mean, they were just beat up front, like they were. Zach Moss 9 carries for 44 yards with a touchdown. So you're happy with the touchdown if you played him. Chase Brown, on the
Mhm.
other hand, 3 carries for 11 yards. Not a great week.
Yeah, no, Chase Brown owners are really disappointed right now, but he's young. Zach Moss is not. There's a lot of work ahead, but the concern was just the offense as a whole. Man,
Hmm.
it looked absolutely atrocious against a Patriot team that no one thought was very good.
Yeah, I
But
think
now
everyone
for the
expected the Bengals to
Patriots,
roll.
but now Ramondre Stevenson, man alive for the Pats. That guy had a day.
Yeah, I believe he had, let me see here, 25 carries for 120 yards and a touchdown. So on the ground was a beast. He added 3 catches for 6 yards. Not a lot there, but some extra points. I mean, he absolutely was dominant.
Gerard Mayo seems, he's going to run football, especially right now while he's easing his quarterbacks in. And
Hmm.
I just think week one, the teams that win are the teams that are more successful running the football. I mean, I think that's true over the course of the year, but it's even more true at the beginning when the defenses are really revved up and ready to go, making life tough on the quarterbacks.
Hmm. And I think too another big thing with this game was how did Antonio Gibson get worked in? I think they signed him to a 3-year deal
Hmm.
with a decent amount of money attached to it, while they also signed Ramondre in the offseason. So Gibson had 7 carries for 18 yards, and I don't believe he even got a target. So I know there's a lot of speculation of maybe he'll be in the passing game, but he wasn't. So that's good if you're a Ramondre owner. You're going to be going forward with a guy who's probably going to lead the backfield with not a lot of vultures. It's going to be a bad offense more than likely. So be prepared
Hmm.
for that. But Ramondre is going to be a volume player.
I mean, Ramondre's a guy I want on my team, but none of those other receivers really like move the needle for me at all moving forward. Like I don't know, they're sharing the wealth a lot. KJ Osborne got more targets than the other guys, but he didn't
Yeah,
really do a whole lot.
it
Yeah.
wasn't a great week for the pass catchers in New England. Again, this was an ugly game, and speaking of pass catchers, I don't think we can move on without talking about the Bengals situation. T. Higgins out. He's more than likely going to be out for week 2. I've read, so that's something to monitor. Um, and then you had Chase, who had 6 catches for just over 60 yards. No, that day doesn't kill you, but you'd kind of expect more in a situation where it's week 1 and you didn't have another premier pass catcher and you were down the whole game.
Yeah. Yeah. And Yeshivas, he had 6 targets. I hoped that he would do a little more. Trenton Irwin has stepped up in the past, not really. Like it gives me a little bit of pause with T. Higgins moving forward too. Like,
Mhm.
what's that going to look like? Are there so many issues up front that it's gonna be a problem all year?
And you know who might have been the most interesting name to me was Mike Gesicki. He had 3 catches for, call it 15, 16 yards, but he had a nasty touchdown overturned that he had in the end zone. Ball hit the ground, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. If you're a Bengals fan, you're
Mhm.
screaming still. But
Right, right.
I know this much that he might be a red zone threat. I mean, he's a big target, and the Bengals kind of lacked having that tight end. We had Uzama in the past. That didn't really work out. So, maybe this is going to help Burrow. I don't know, but I know this much that the Bengals offense is not in a good position, and there was a lot to be discussed and a lot to be concerned about too.
And really, at this point, any production you get from a tight end, like is good production. It seems
Hmm.
like the tight end world struggled a lot this past week, and then the ones that didn't were some names we didn't necessarily expect. So,
Hmm.
I mean, all those guys could be useful moving forward.
Completely agree. So let's jump into our next matchup here. We had the Vikings taking on the Giants, and Giants were at home celebrating their 100th year, wearing the ugliest uniforms I've ever seen in my entire
Uh,
life,
yeah,
with lots of big names in house. And what happened? They got killed. It was not a
I-
good day to be a Giants fan.
yeah. The uniforms match the offense, right? What is it like? Daniel Jones hasn't thrown a touchdown pass since week 2 of last season.
I think
I
that's
mean,
true. And
oh my gosh.
I think I read too, he has more pick sixes than he does passing touchdowns in the last couple years. That's not a stat you want.
And bad news for Daniel Jones owners at this point. Like, who wants the guy? Like, you're not getting rid of him if you want to. I don't think at this point.
You're spot on. Like I was about to say, this is a situation where I would be saying, all right, it's time to sell. The only problem is who's gonna buy? And I don't think
Yeah,
you have an option right now.
I moved him before last season for a second round pick, and it was like the greatest thing ever. Like
Yeah.
when you look back on it now, it's like, man, like this guy, he is not it.
No, he's
Um,
not it. Um, it kind of sucks. He got the bag, he got paid. They've
mhm.
got Neighbors. Neighbors had 5 catches for 66 yards, so not a horrible day for the rookie. Um, but interesting note here: the backfield. What did you make of the backfield there, Coach?
I made that none of them are great, and they don't know who's the best. I mean,
Hmm.
that's what it feels like to me. They're just throwing them out there, and it's almost like, all right, you're up next. You're up next. Like I don't
So
Singletary. They want to be good. We know Singletary's not that dynamic, so they would
mhm,
love for another guy to come on. Tracy's young. Like that's the guy. If I'm trying to get it back, I'll take him and sit and see what happens.
that's been the name that we've been on most of the offseason is Tracy because he's cheap
Yeah.
and the opportunities there. And we said that in our last episode. You're looking for opportunities, and there's opportunities there
Right.
for him. Um, But the biggest name, I think, for the Giants offense is one of your favorites from a couple years ago, Wandale Robinson. I mean,
Yeah.
he had 12 targets, y'all. 12 targets.
Yeah.
He had 6 catches
He
for
is.
44 yards, and he even had a carry for 14 yards.
He he is still on my bench. I mean, he is still on my
Yeah.
roster in a few teams. Like I'm just waiting to play him. But I mean, the guy's fast. He was hurt most of last year.
Lots of injuries.
Um, so I mean, they're hunting playmakers, and he's obviously a guy that they think can help them. Really young. I mean, he's a guy you can go get cheap if you're hunting a flex play moving forward, and just kind of let's monitor this and see how it goes. The way Daniel Jones is struggling, they're gonna find ways to get it somebody that
Yeah.
can run the football.
They're going to be throwing the ball. They're going to have to
Yeah.
because this team is not good. They're going to be losing. There's going to be a lot of garbage time play. They've announced that Daniel Jones is going to be the starter for week 2. So
Mhm.
it's kind of funny that they're already questioning that, and rightfully so because he was awful. Don't get it twisted, but it does not look good to be in the Giants camp right now. I expect a new coach, or excuse me, a new quarterback next year, possibly a new coach.
Yeah, totally agree. The flip is Minnesota and Sam Darnold. Like they're
Whoo,
they're they're gonna be a tough out now. This is
yeah.
a team to look out for. Like he's probably as good right now as JJ McCarthy as a rookie, if not better, with all
Did
his
you
experience. I mean,
did you see Darnold start? He started the game 12 for 12. 12
yeah,
for 12,
lit it
and he
up.
drove the field. I mean,
Lit it
I
up.
understand it's the Giants. We know this much. Justin Jefferson is still good. He had 4 for
Absolutely.
59 and a touchdown, so is it his best day? No, but this game was over as soon as it started. So, yeah,
Yeah,
there wasn't a
totally.
lot for him to do. Um, but the name that surprised me the most, which one is maybe because I'm not used to seeing it, but seeing Aaron Jones wearing purple just didn't fit. I was
Yeah.
confused the entire game, but he looked good. 14 carries for 94 yards and a touchdown. Great day for him.
Yeah, yeah, dude produced. I mean, he played really, really well, and he can do that if he stays healthy. He's going to
Mhm.
produce. He always is good for missing 5 or 6 games a year. But if he's on your roster and you get him in the game, you know what I mean. You better play this guy because they're going to throw. He can really produce in the backfield, out of the backfield, wherever he needs to be. Like it was
Uh,
impressive.
yeah. Addison
But
had a
now it could be because the Giants are that bad.
That's
That's
true.
possible too.
Which is kind of part of our point of let's not overreact too much. So let's go into next week, see what happens. But,
Hmm.
Aaron Jones led the backfield. Ty Chandler was second up. He had 8 carries for 17 yards. So not a great day for him. I do expect him to be involved in the offense. They
Hmm.
like him. I think he's still going to get carries. Aaron Jones is going to lead the way, though. Um, Addison on the opposite side of Jefferson, he had 3 catches for 35 yards on 4 targets. Not a great day. Again,
It
this
kind of
really
feels
wasn't a
like it's gonna
game.
be, but it kind of feels like what he's gonna do most games.
Yeah,
Like,
I think you're right. Like if you're getting, I would expect an average fantasy point for Addison to be somewhere around 7 to 8, maybe.
mhm,
I don't really expect it to be in the double digits if Jefferson stays healthy. Not with Sam Darnold. Now Darnold could impress us and be better, but I
mhm.
just don't think that he's going to produce 2 high end pass catchers. I don't.
No, yeah, yeah, I'm with you on that for sure.
And I have to give a shout out one, Jalen Naylor, former Spartan over here. He caught a touchdown. He's been involved in the offense. He's an absolute speedster. He did it at Michigan State, so it's going to be interesting to watch him. Kind of more of best ball play, maybe more DFS, but something to watch. I mean, he's young. He's young and fast.
He is, and Johnny Munt, who I added on several of my rosters, hoping he
Hey,
might get a little shine
that was
without.
a waiver claim from me, and I shouted him out. 2 catches for 15 yards. Not great, but he didn't
Mhm.
goose egg.
No, he's a guy that if he's on your team, you're just hoping he can get in the end zone, right? If you
Hmm.
can
Yeah,
get him that target in the end zone and get him in there, and he might can help you. The Giants, on the other hand, Theo Johnson at tight end, the young guy started the game. I mean, this is a tight end that I want on my roster moving forward if possible. Good athlete. The Giants are just bad, so it's going to hold his numbers down. But who knows? In a year or two, with a better passing game, you want to hang on to him.
and I'd rather have Theo than Bellinger.
No, no doubt.
I'd much rather have him. Um,
Yeah.
Well, let's jump in. I know we're going to spend a little bit of time on this game. The Bears took
Mhm.
on the Titans, and what is possibly the most outlandish outcome I've ever seen. The Titans were frankly dominating that game. The Bears had no offense, and some say they are still searching for their offense. But despite that, the Bears won 24-17.
Well, old school Bears, right? I mean, they're monsters
Nothing's
of the
changed.
Midway. I've watched it for 43 years. Um, But now I will say this for rookie quarterbacks, right? For starters, like it's hard, it's
Hmm.
hard. Being a rookie quarterback in the NFL is difficult. Let's not act like it's not. I mean, some of the greats, Matt Stafford, Troy Aikman, some of these guys
Peyton
have
Manning,
really
Trevor
struggled
Lawrence.
first year, first game, that. But going back and watching through every throw Caleb Williams had, he had a really, really bad day. Um, some base.
14 for
I
29
mean,
on the day.
this is a dude that says he doesn't get nervous. Well, I'm calling bull on that. Like he was clearly nervous and making some decisions that do not make sense to me. Everybody pointed out the play where he went backwards and spun out of a couple tackles and ended up losing like 20 yards. What people don't realize, I don't think, is that that's a screen. When that screen was blown up, he should have threw it at his feet and moved on to the next down. That is a play where he's not thinking at all.
Mm-mm.
His footwork was bad. At times, it was like I was watching Justin Fields again. Like his footwork was really, really bad. He missed some throws. Now he had some good reads on some plays, and he missed throws that he would make. I don't know. A lot of times, maybe if he wasn't nervous and it wasn't his first outing, possibly. But as a whole, it was really, really concerning. And not just him, the center and the interior line play was pretty rough. Both guards, I mean, there was pressure in his face a lot where they were drove up the field and he didn't have a lot of comfortable room to step up in the pocket. But there are reads and throws that he's got to be able to make. And hopefully, as the year goes, he'll get more comfortable.
Yeah, I mean he struggled, but the entire offense did. Nobody was beneficial for you if you were playing him. He had less than 100 passing yards. I mean, it was a bad day. Uh, DeAndre
Well, I
Swift
think
had.
when
Go ahead.
I
I'm
would say
sorry.
I think as a quarterback's advance and what they do in the league, like they get the play call, they can check in and out of stuff. Like that being comfortable is what happens when you get good, right? When you get to that point, but no rookies are really doing that. They're taking the play call and this is what we're living with. They're not getting in and out of stuff like they will be 2 years from now in theory. So you're kind of stuck with what you got. But there are just a lot of plays left out there that could have been big plays. There were people open deep down the field that we overthrew, that we missed. There were chances for an actual big day from the offense,
Hmm.
but Williams missed a lot of throws.
And I think you're right. Part of that is going to be they'll find a way to work around some of this. He's talented, and you can see
Hmm.
where he's going to be that creator, and he's
Hmm.
going to scramble around and make some people miss, and he's going to just launch the ball down the field and make something happen. So
And he
I
has a big arm,
he
big
does
arm.
absolutely, and I mean you're spot on. He overthrew Keenan Allen for what should have been a touchdown, and
Hmm.
then we're talking about a different day because I think that would have been about a 40-yard play maybe. Um,
It felt like Keenan Allen was the guy the entire game. Like we were trying to get the ball to Keenan Allen far
11
too much.
targets. 11
Yeah,
targets. So I do think he was the guy. But
far too much in my opinion.
to
But
be fair, exactly. I was about to say I think it kind of still folds in with our first episode where we were marking him as a sell. It's still concerning because of the age and the playmakers around him. I'm not sure how sustainable this is. The only thing that might change that is Rome Odunze, who had one catch for 11 yards. He did get injured, so that's something to keep in the back of
mhm.
your mind and monitor. Did we get official report? I don't remember what the verdict was
Yeah,
on that.
it's nothing major. It's gonna be week to week, but
Hmm.
that may up Keenan Allen's value next week if Rome
Hmm.
doesn't play. Even more. So
Yeah, and DJ Moore, 5 catches for 36 yards. He had 8 targets, so the volume
like,
was
let's get that
there.
guy the ball. That's the
I
guy we
agree.
want to get the ball.
Playmaker. He's a playmaker.
Yeah,
And then the run game, DeAndre Swift, 10 carries for 30 yards. Not a great day. Again, the Bears' offense was just not there today. I do expect it to improve because you can't be much worse than what it was, and that's just the truth.
right.
And
Yeah.
and I think there's something to be said of you know rookie quarterbacks stepping into their first game. It's a big difference
Mhm.
between preseason.
Yeah,
Those defenses are legit.
and look, like if you for especially for a rookie, if you can't run the football with some consistency, it's going to be really, really hard. Like it's hard all the time, but for that rookie, it's a nightmare if you can't run
And
that football.
to put it in perspective, I know they showed it before the game, and you and I talked about this several times. Why don't you tell us, Coach, who the last quarterback was as a rookie who was the number one overall pick to win their opening game?
I don't know. Maybe Caleb Williams.
Oh, okay, it was Caleb Williams. You know who it was before that?
Go ahead. Let's hear it.
It was David Carr. So
Yes.
it's
Yes.
not a situation that happens a lot. So we need to remember that, and
Not
it
the
will
comp we're
improve.
looking for either.
Not the comp we're looking for, but I do think that the Titans have a sneaky defense. I forget their D tackle's name. I'm blanking on his name, but his nickname's T Pain, and he was a T
Yeah,
Pain in everyone's butt. I can tell you that much right now. He was a wrecking
he was.
ball in the middle. My word,
Yeah,
what a
he
player!
really was.
Um,
Tony Pollard looked good.
Tony Pollard. Yeah, let's move on to the Titans. So I'll just hit you with some quick stats, and then we can break down the players. Will Levis, 19 for 32, 127 yards, one touchdown, two picks. So not a great day. Tony Pollard, 16 carries for 82 yards, and then we'll get into the wide receivers after that. But tell me about Tony Pollard.
It's he was impressive and clearly the guy. I thought Tajay Spears would get more work, so I
I
was
did too.
he's a guy I was trying to hang on to here and there, but now it's like, man, I guess Tony Pollard is the guy.
And
We
the
were led to
reports,
believe it was going to be a true split, and that was
yeah,
not true at all.
that's exactly what I was about to say is, prior to this game over the last week or so, we were getting told reports out of camp, oh, it's going to be a 50-50 timeshare. And, maybe that'll adjust. Maybe Pollard was the hot hand. I mean, he had a carry that went for about 26 yards, 28 yards, something like that. Looked really good, explosive. Um, Titans started the game well, but ultimately they faltered. There wasn't
Mhm.
anything there. Levis kind of chucked one into the end zone to Chigakonkwo, so that was his lone touchdown of the day, and the lone
Hey,
pass catching touchdown.
and as bad as Caleb Williams was, Will Levis was just as bad. His decision
Hmm.
making was just as bad.
Horrible. It
He
was
does have a
horrible.
he has a big arm. Yeah, I thought it was funny. Their coach said if they just would have punted on 1st and 10 the whole game, they would have won. Uh,
It's pretty sad.
so yeah, um, yeah, and he's young, so you're gonna ride that out. Maybe move him now because he is so young. If I can sell him, I might do that now because of his
Yeah,
age. People give him a shot.
it's
I don't know. This guy
that's
does
not
not see
something I
the field
want.
great.
Mm-mm.
I do not.
And for the pass catchers, Calvin Ridley, 3 catches, 50 yards. Tyler Boyd, 3 catches, 18 yards. And D Hop, 1 catch for 8 yards. So it was just not a good day for really
Yeah,
offense in this game. if
and I
if you're
will
not
say that the
named,
Bears defense looked really legit. So that the Titans are going to be better than that, but because the Bears secondary is really, really good. Jalen Johnson is as good as there is in the NFL. Um, so I mean that's going to play a factor. I mean the Titans are going to get better there offensively, especially if they're able to run the ball like they did, especially in the first half.
hmm
And it's going to continue to get better for them. But I still
yeah,
don't see this. Still doesn't see like a team that's going to be really great. So.
and if their defense plays like that, that's going to just let them be in games. I mean,
Hmm.
again, I understand that they're going to play tougher offenses than the Bears, and probably the Bears will get better than they were. But still, I mean,
Hmm.
they just shut them down. There was nothing the Bears could do. And, is that a
Yeah,
product of them or Caleb Williams? To be determined.
148 total yards. I mean that's what the Bears produced.
That's awful. That's awful. Well, speaking of awful, coach, let's break down this one. And this is gross. The Saints took on the Panthers, and the
Oh
Saints
gosh, man.
beat them 480 million to nothing. Um, Final score was
Uh,
47-10. I'm not even sure the Panthers showed up. I don't know who that was. That
and
was
it felt way worse than 48 to 10. That's how bad it was.
it
Um,
was very bad. Well, let's
it's a
start with the
nightmare. And I'm
Saints.
telling you, okay.
Uh,
Well,
let,
Rashid
let's
Shaheed.
three
Rashid
for
Shaheed. I mean, that's a
73 and a
guy.
touchdown. He had the deep ball
I mean,
target again, a 59-yard catch. I mean, he is someone you've been preaching for 2 or 3 years, and he
mhm.
continues to make big plays. Just keeps doing it.
Yeah, and he just keeps getting better every year too. And he had a big kick return. The guy is an elite athlete. When he gets on the field, he can really run. I mean, it's interesting. Like he got more targets than Olave. Now, granted, this game was over and over in a hurry, so I mean that factors into it because those guys weren't even on the field most of the second half. That's how bad of a beating this was.
Yeah.
Um,
Derek Carr, 19 for 23, 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. No picks. He had a day.
I mean, yeah, I mean we saw that Derek Carr at times in with the Raiders when Gruden was running the offense. We kind of saw that Carr at times, so he can be a steady quarterback. I mean, this dude's not bad.
He's not bad. Alvin Kamara, 15 carries for 83 yards and a touchdown. Jamal Williams, 11 carries for 38 yards and a touchdown. So the running game was there. Taysom Hill is going to be Taysom Hill. I mean, he just does everything. He had 5 carries for 35 yards, added a couple targets, had 1 catch, I believe. So, I mean, the Saints have weapons. You mentioned Olave, who had 2 catches for 11 yards. It wasn't a good day for Olave. You are
Yeah.
correct in this game was over within the first 10 minutes, probably. I mean, it was over.
When the game's over like that, it's better for the team that's behind, in fantasy. So I mean, those guys weren't even in the game in the second half a lot of the time. So that really affected their fantasy numbers too.
It was a great day for the Saints, not a great day necessarily for anyone other than Derek Carter or Shaheed.
Mm, right.
Shaheed,
But Kamara still got 5 targets. He
mhm.
had 83 rushing yards and a touchdown. Like he's gonna
He's gonna
be,
be good. He's gonna be
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Well, let's move to the dark side here and let's talk about the Panthers. Bryce Young, 13 for 30, no touchdowns, 2 picks. It was ugly, coach. He did not look good. Those picks were awful.
Well, Well, I said to my buddy when I went to training camp, I said, "There's no way if this is a 500 NFL roster that I'm looking at out here, then something is wrong." And they do not look it. They look
Mm-mm.
absolutely atrocious. And Bryce Young was as bad as you could imagine. Like he looked like he had never took a snap in the NFL before in his life. I mean, they're don't get me wrong, they're not good up front. The roster is bad, but he is still cannot pick up a blitz. I mean, they had a corner with 3 sacks. I think it was. Like, how do we not recognize a corner blitz? Like that is on Bryce Young completely. I mean, there are hots out there every time that happens, and he hadn't saw it yet. I
Alontae
mean,
Tate,
it was
3 sacks. You're right.
yeah, it was really, really bad. Like again, this is a guy that he's still young. There's some people out there that'll take him because he's so young. And if you've got him and you can get rid of him, I would do it now.
And I'm with you. I wrote down here in my notes. If you have Bryce, it is time to move on.
And
Is there a
hurry.
world? Yes, yeah. Is there a world where it gets better? Maybe, but
Oh yeah, it can't get worse.
it can't get worse. And so I think what I'm doing is I'm holding him because I don't think you're going to get anybody to buy him this week. But if he plays decent week 2, I'm
Hmm.
going to the Jordan Love manager, or if God forbid there's another quarterback injury, I'm going to that team and I'm saying, "Here's Bryce Young. What will you give me?" Because
Hmm.
I just don't think this isn't a good roster. There's not pieces that are really going to be fundamental, foundational pieces for the organization going forward, and that has concerns for Bryce, has concerns for head coach. There's just red flags everywhere. It was a bad
Yeah,
day.
yeah. You gotta hope that Leggett will improve. He got 7 targets. He was the target leader. Granted, a lot of that happened when this game was way over. Um, but still, I mean, he looked like the best athlete at wide receiver for the Panthers. Jonathan Brooks comes back. Hopefully, he can give you a little bit of hope too between those guys that they can continue to improve to give something to build around. But it's rough.
Yeah, you mentioned Xavier Leggett. Other than him, it really was not much there. Deontay Johnson had 6 targets, didn't really do a lot with it. Adam Thielen didn't really do a lot. Jonathan Mingo didn't do a lot. Jatavion Sanders didn't do anything. It was not a good day. The Panthers were abysmal on the ground. It was kind of an odd split. Now I understand they were losing by a lot very
Mhm.
quick, but Miles Sanders had 5 carries for 22 yards. Chuba had 6 carries for 14 yards. So the rushing attack, it was non-existent.
Well, you're right about that. And I'll tell you something that's funny here in North Carolina. I've heard at least 3 people in the last 2 days say it's time to go to Andy Dalton. I mean, that's how bad it is. Like, like that is not the answer.
Mm-mm.
But goodness gracious, that's how bad it. That's how bad it is.
But you know what? It's not crazy if at some point he plays. If Bryce keeps this up, then I can't emphasize this enough. If you haven't seen it, I would go and watch the interceptions because they were bad. They were
Hmm.
really bad picks. And you're spot on with the sacks. A corner had 3 sacks. A corner. We're not talking about Cam Jordan with 3 sacks. We're talking about a corner.
On the
So
same corner blitz, that is his job to recognize and pick it up.
spot on. I mean, it is his job. It's his spot is to sit there, read the defense, and try and make sure that he's going to execute the play in the best way possible. And
Mhm.
it felt like routinely he did the opposite. He made the worst decision possible. I mean, I think there was one play where he was scrambling and he literally just ran into one of his offensive linemen, just flat
Yeah,
ran into him. I mean, it was a bad day. So hopefully the Panthers can turn around a little bit for our friends in Carolina, but it's not looking good.
yeah. My son's a little disappointed there, but
It was a tough
I
day.
tried to tell
So
him going into the year. Yeah.
well, let's jump into another matchup that was kind of a surprise. We had the Falcons taking on the Steelers at home, and this game was with the trend, no offense. The Steelers won 18-10, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, they kicked 6 field goals. So, I mean, it was a weird game. Let's start on the Steelers side. Justin Fields got the start. Russ was a late scratch there. It looks like Fields is going to be trending to be the starter this week as well. But he
Yeah, I
went
saw that.
17 for 23 for 156 yards, no touchdowns. Those numbers are kind of inflated. It wasn't really a lot of down the field work, but what were your thoughts, Coach?
If Fields is in the lineup, he has fantasy relevance because he also ran the ball 14 times for 57 yards. Like he has
Mhm.
fantasy relevance. Um, but if you're a Steeler fan, you're not going to score many points. It just kind of is what it is. So I mean, if you have Justin Fields, then I would probably recommend playing him until just because he does so much on the ground with his legs. But
You get one
still, I don't.
touchdown, then your day is probably saved. I mean, that's all you need,
Yeah,
just one. Um,
totally.
Najee Harris, 20 carries for 70 yards. He played fine. Cordell
Mhm.
Patterson had a couple rushes in there. Jalen Warren didn't really have a lot of ground game work, only 2 carries. So that I thought was kind of interesting. Maybe this was a product of just the game. Um, Pickens was the leading receiver. He led in targets, had 7 targets with 6 catches for 85 yards. So a pretty good day for Pickens. Um,
Mhm.
After that, it was Pat Fryermuth, 4 catches, 27 yards.
I mean, Pickens is the guy I was down on, really, but clearly he's the guy. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you can go target Pickens, he's young. If you can go out and buy him, give a little bit, see if you can get him on your roster. That's a guy you want to have moving forward. They seem to be building this offense around George Pickens.
Pickens kind of feels to me a lot like DJ Moore with the Panthers. Like he's
Mhm.
clearly the guy for the team, but it's just there's so many buts and ifs around the team that it just never really gets to fully click. So I mean, I agree with you. They're building around him as their wide receiver one. They tried to add Ayuk. Who's the one in that situation? I don't know. Well, we would have to see. But I mean, what we know is what we got right now, and Pickens is about it.
And this feels like the same Pittsburgh teams we've been watching. Like
Hmm.
they may just be good enough on defense and stuff to win 9 games or sneak into playoffs if somehow.
I,
I mean,
I mean, you're not wrong there because I'm not sure how much you got to watch of this game. T.J. Watt was a monster.
mhm.
I mean, he just was
Unblockable.
causing havoc every play.
Yeah.
What a player! What a player! Well, let's switch sides. Let's go to the Falcons here. Bad day. Bad day for the Falcons. Kirk Cousins, 16 for 26, 155 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 picks. And following the trend, the picks were not pretty.
No, but I mean, he's been out a while. Not a huge surprise. There's a lot of rust there. Bad thing is, he's only going to get about 4 or 5 of those chances before they are clamoring for Michael Penix to be in the
Hmm.
game. So he's going to have
Yeah.
to get it together soon. I don't care how much they paid him. They won't be
Yeah.
able to hold off the fans if it stays this way.
Yeah. He'll be sweating. He'll be sweating.
Yeah. But now Bijan got some usage finally, so there's that. I mean, they tried to get him the ball.
18
Um,
carries, 68
every
yards.
every uh every dynasty owner last year that has Bijan, me included, last year was losing their mind because he couldn't get the ball. But he got the ball plenty of times Sunday, so hopefully that continues to trend in a positive direction. Just got to get him in
Yeah.
the end zone.
Not a lot of work for Tyler Algier, so that's good for people wondering how much of a split that would be. Maybe it changes with a better
Mhm.
offense, but only 3 carries, so not really eating into the workload too much. Pass
Yeah.
catchers, of course, it went
Wow.
as expected. Ray McLeod led the team in targets. Just that's exactly what we all predicted.
No, I did mention him as a flex guy at one point. Like he's a guy you want to have just because he's in the slot and a starting
Mhm.
receiver. But
Yeah.
I, us Drake London believers are a little disappointed today.
And I have a good feeling that this is going to be one of those cases where the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I expect a good week for Drake London next week. I really do. I don't think
Yeah.
they can survive with him having 3 targets and totaling 2 catches for 15 yards. That's not sustainable for them. He is a big part of the offense. And his running mate, guess what? Kyle Pitts. He scored, guys. He scored. He made it into the end zone. Kyle Pitts, 3 catches, 26 yards, and a touchdown. That was good to see. I know you're not the biggest Pitts believer, but I think the athleticism is there. There's an opportunity for him to develop into a guy Kirk can use. I mean, we've seen Kirk use a tight end in the past. He used Jordan Reed in Washington. I believe he had Vernon Davis too. He had Zach Randolph, and then he ended in Minnesota with help me out here, T.J. Hawkinson. So I think that Kirk can make Pitts be relevant in fantasy and kind of help his value and hit a height that he hasn't hit to this point. But there's still a lot to work with this offense.
Yeah, to say the least. We do. I mean, I do completely urge caution on the Drake London thing. Just give it some time; it'll get better. Similar to DJ Moore in Chicago. Like, if those two offenses want to get going, then they're going to have to get their two best receivers of football.
Agreed.
So
They're the
I think
playmakers.
you're going to see that happening,
Yeah.
and
So
that's why it may be an opportunity to buy a little low on Drake London. If there's an owner that's trying to panic a little bit, it's a possibility. Now's a decent time to go make an offer for him.
yeah, and feel free to check out our last video too, our episode 2, where we went through several Drake London trades. And some of them I
Mhm.
think are a little bit surprising for what you'd have to pay to go get him. So certainly something I'm willing to explore if someone should be down on Drake London.
Yep, you can probably get him for even cheaper today than you could have this time last week. So,
Yep, agreed. Well, let's move on to our next game. We had the Dolphins taking on the Jaguars. The Dolphins win 20-17. It was kind of a back and forth game. It was pretty fun. The Jags started out pretty hot. I think they had all 17 points in the first half, didn't score in the second half. But um, let's start with the Dolphins here, coach. And let's go through Tua's day 23 for 37, 338 in the air, 1 touchdown, no picks. Good day for Tua.
yeah, far and away the best Sunday. I mean, of anybody. He played really well. Um, I mean, 338 says enough in itself. You just wish he could get in the end zone a little more than 1 touchdown. So that kind of capped his fantasy points a little bit. But Tua's a guy with such high powered guys around him that he can be successful and a solid quarterback for you every week.
He can. We had Waddle who came in and out a couple times with some injury. I do believe he finished the game. I can't remember for certain. But I mean, Tyreek Hill was Tyreek Hill. 7 catches, 130 yards, and a touchdown. He had 12 targets. So
Yeah, it's
this
crazy.
just in, Tyreek Hill is still good.
Yeah, no doubt. The running back room was pretty split. A Chain got more touches than I expected, but something folks need to monitor. I saw A Chain and Mostert. Neither one practiced today.
Hmm.
They're playing a Thursday night game, so you got to keep that in mind. Like something could be going on there. So if you can
Yeah.
go stash Wilson here, you might need to because there's a possibility neither of those guys plays on Thursday night.
And same with the rookie too, Jalen Wright. He was a healthy scratch, I believe. So, if one of
Yeah,
those guys
I didn't
were to
see that
miss
coming.
time, he could
Mhm.
step into that role because he looks just like them. I mean, he is fast as lightning.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
Uh,
and
and it's possible at least one of them may not play.
Mhm. And I think we have to mention it. Jalen Waddle had 5 catches for 109 yards, so it was a solid day for Jalen Waddle. I mean,
Yeah.
really, these Miami pass catchers are in a great situation. I mean, like you said, if Tua can be throwing for 338, it's going to be a good day. Like their
Yeah.
offense is going to score and put up fantasy points.
Yeah, you want any piece of this offense you can get.
Mhm.
As long as Mike McDaniel's coaching, like there's going to be some points scored.
Oh yeah, they're going to put it up. Well, let's flip
Mhm.
to the other side, Coach. The Jags. Trevor Lawrence went 12 for 21,
Mhm.
162 yards and a touchdown. No picks, so that was good to see. I watched most of this game, and I think the Jags should have won. First of all, I mean, you had a Travis Etienne fumble at the 1 yard line that would have put this game away. They would have gone up by 17, and that's what really gave the spark for the Dolphins to come back. Um, you know, the most concerning thing to me is the Jacksonville backfield. Tank Bigsby had 12 carries for 73 yards. Travis
Yeah,
Etienne had 12 for 44 with a touchdown. So, I mean, he did fumble. Maybe that's part of the reason Tank played more, but I mean, Tank looked good.
there's a lot of concern for ETN owners right now, in my opinion, just because of the workload Bigsby got. Now, ETN did have two chances. Obviously, scored once. He had another chance to score, so there's that. But as long as they're sharing this thing like they are, Bigsby, there's going to be plenty of days where Bigsby has more points than ETN. So
hmm And again, this was a game where there were long drives. The game kind of went back and forth. The defenses played well, um, and kind of made each side earn it. But we did end up seeing a solid day for what I believe to be a solid day for Brian Thomas Jr. Comes out first game, 4 catches, 47 yards, and a touchdown. And that play to me reminded me so much of all those clips we've seen in the offseason of the drops from the Jags last year.
yeah, you're exactly right there. And just to go back on the running back thing,
hmm
I've noticed that this trend has continued to grow, but the Ramadre type days where you have 25 carries, like that is so rare now. Like there are so many splits going on. And I look for that to continue to change. So moving forward, fantasy wise, I want the guys that are getting the ball thrown to them the most. Like
Yep.
if there's a split, I'm hunting a carry split, then I'm hunting the guy that's getting the ball thrown to him the most, which was ETN. Like I don't
Yep.
know that Bigsby even had a target.
Bigsby did not target, and
So
ETN
that's,
3.
that's important. That's important moving
Yeah,
forward.
and you're spot on. The day of the bell cow is over. Like there's
Yeah.
not a lot of those left, y'all. I mean, more and more of these teams are moving to committees, which makes sense. I mean, it helps them out, and a lot of them kind of get two different players that will build off of each other. And
Mhm.
Tank and ETN are a good example of that. Najee and Jalen Warren in Pittsburgh are another example. Like there's plenty of those around the league. But we also had with the Jags, the ball was kind of spread around. If you started Christian Kirk or you started Evan Ingram, you were not happy. It was not a good day for either one of those guys.
No, you're totally right. Not a good day at all.
A- And I expect that to improve. I mean, I'm kind of the secondary Jags fan here. I've been preaching them for a long time. Gabe Davis did what Gabe Davis does: 3 catches for 62 yards. Just made a couple plays, but I expect them to be a little bit better. Again, Trevor didn't have to throw the ball a ton. He only threw it 21 times, but again, this game was just weird. It was different. They had a big lead, and like I said, ETN fumbled at the 1. They were about to go up 17, so this game was about to look totally different.
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree. I mean, the Jags have a lot of potential. Their numbers are strange considering how much they had a chance to win this game compared to the Dolphins' numbers. But so there's a lot there that could be built on for them moving forward.
Well, let's jump into our next game, Coach, and we had the Texans taking on the Colts. And the Texans won 29-27, and kind of a little bit of a shootout. Went back and forth. Lots of fantasy relevance in this game. Let's start with the Texans. CJ Stroud, 24 for 32, 234, and 2 touchdowns. Now, I want to emphasize this. It says no picks, but make no mistake, guys, he threw 2 picks that just happened to not get, to hold up. One foot was out of bounds, and the other one had a penalty. But there were 2 picks for Stroud, so his protection of the football was not as great as last year, but they still edged out the Colts.
Yeah, and boy, they're gonna let CJ Stroud stand back here and sling it too. Um, and interesting, the receiving numbers, like they spread that wealth out a lot. 8 targets, 7 targets, 6 targets for Collins, Dell, and Diggs in that order. So
And
he's going to share the ball. He's going to spread it around. Everybody's going to have a chance to score. And I'm telling you, if you own one of those three guys, there's going to be days when you're in love with them, and there's going to be Sundays where you are pulling your hair out because they're going to share it, and it's from the looks of Sunday. So that's going to be something to monitor moving forward. We talked about who's the one, who's the one, who's the one. Maybe there's not one.
there might not be. I mean, like you said, they're all going to have a day where they're good. Diggs happened to be
Yeah.
the one that got 2 touchdowns, but he didn't really have a lot of yardage to go with that. Only 6 catches for 33 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tank Dell, 3 catches for 40 yards. And Nico, 6 catches for 117 yards. He was the target leader, like you said, and he looked good. I mean, he is what we've been saying all off season. Nico's legit.
Yeah, 100%. He's legit. He can run. He's a big, strong athlete. Like, yeah, I mean, I like to see that. But the thing that jumps off the page when you look at their stats is Joe Mixon getting 30 carries. 30
My word.
carries.
We talked
That's
about
what
bell
we just
cows.
talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that
30
shocked
carries,
me. Now, they
159
sung his
yards.
praises. They sung his praises all camp and how tough he was. And well, we're gonna find out how tough he is if he gets 30 carries every week.
And I think they're going to run him into the ground. It was a great day for Joe Mixon. He ran all over the place. Um,
Yeah.
Moving to the flip, let's talk about the Colts and Richardson, someone who was on our buy sell list in our first episode. He goes 9 for 19, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Now,
Mhm.
the big plays are the ones that are all over X right now. Everybody's sharing the video of the deep ball touchdown where he slipped and still launched it up there to Alec Pierce.
Mhm.
Heck of a play, really athletic play, but it's still concerning to me that he had 9 completions for 9 out of 19
Yeah.
attempts. It's still the process that we were screaming in. Is Richardson the quarterback answer? I think the question mark is still there. I mean, he made 2 big plays. There's no denying he's got the arm. Like he can launch the ball. But he still had questionable decision making. He threw a pick. He had several balls where he just completely missed. I think Adonai Mitchell, someone posted he would have had the greatest rookie day of all time if he would have been hit on any of his targets.
And he was wide open down the field multiple times. It was missed.
Mhm.
Like he would have went for 150 plus.
Yeah, and probably 3 touchdowns. Like, make no mistake. Go look at it. Go pull it up on X because it's unbelievable how open he was.
And Anthony Richardson is a guy that if he's playing, like he's going to score for fantasy because he runs the ball so much. But
Mhm.
that's not the question. And when we say that, and we said he could still be really, really good. But the question is, can he stand in the pocket and throw the ball enough to be a consistent NFL quarterback for the long run? We'll see. A lot of time to go. Obviously, he has athleticism to do it. But you
But
can't
there's
have those
concerns.
interceptions. You can't miss those guys. Some of those guys wide open.
Yeah, and it was multiple times. He had 6
Those
carries for
numbers
56
scream. Those
yards.
numbers scream Justin Fields, right?
They do.
Those are Justin Fields numbers.
When I see below 10 completions or when we see low numbers, kinda like we talked about in our buy sell video when he had, less than 15 attempts, that's concerning because you either need to be doing what, you know, the Saints did where they dominate the game off the rip, or like you just need to be hyper efficient, and that is not in Richardson's game. It's just not.
Right. Right.
So
No, totally not.
Jonathan Taylor had 16 carries for 48 yards and a touchdown. Solid day. Um, the passing work it went to Alec Pierce, 3 catches, 125 yards and a touchdown. Richardson's other touchdown was a big play to Ashton Doolin. So not a great day for Pittman. Not a great day for Adonai Mitchell, but they're going to have their days, especially Pittman. I
Yeah.
think he'll be fine. Don't panic.
Yeah. He doubled up most everybody in targets. So, I
Yeah,
mean, Pittman's going to be fine.
yeah. Well, let's jump into our afternoon window and let's go through the Raiders and the Chargers. The Chargers win 22-10. Harbaugh gets his first win, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I think J.K. Dobbins is still running.
Yeah, no doubt. Like, well, I had Gus Edwards on several of my rosters. That's a little disappointing, but yeah,
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh, dude. Harbaugh just does it. He just
Hmm.
finds a way to win, man. He just
Yeah.
does. Like, there's a world where this season ends and the Chargers got 9 wins and found their way in the playoffs too. And I don't think they're loaded with talent on offense, but
Yeah. I
Justin
agree.
Herbert's done it before. Wasn't pretty, but they ran the football, got the win.
17 for 26 for Herbert, 144 and one touchdown, no interceptions. So, not necessarily the best passing day, but he was efficient. But the ground game was impressive. 10 carries for 135 yards and a touchdown for J.K. Dobbins. He just
Yeah.
ran all over the place. Gus Edwards had 11 carries for 26 yards. The passing work, Ladd led the team in targets with 7, so that's good to see, especially for me. I've been a Ladd believer. Got several shares of Ladd, and I'm really excited to see how that goes. He ended with 5 catches, 39 yards, and a touchdown.
Yeah, and Johnston proved he could be a viable option too. If you can go make a play for Ladd McConkey in the long run, that's a guy you probably should go try to get. Um,
Yeah, and
and on the
I
Raiders
watched.
side, like Zamir White was disappointing. Everybody's Madison's a guy you want to try
Whew,
to go get.
yeah, you mentioned Zamir White. Let's talk about that for just 1 second. Zamir White, 13 carries for 44 yards. And Addison, or excuse me, Alexander Madison, he had 5 carries for 19 yards. Lots of passing work, though.
Yeah, 6 targets. Zamir White had 2 targets for 2 total yards. Like I I've just not been on this Zamir White bandwagon, and I'm still not.
Yeah,
Madison's a guy I might even think about playing this coming week. They like going to him, but the guy I was glad to see that produced is Brock Bowers. So they're gonna find a way to get him the ball. Eight
great day
targets.
for Bowers.
The guy can play. He can
He can
play.
play. You're spot on there. Like it was great to see the rookie get 8 targets coming into this week. Gardner Minshew went 25 for 33, had 257, and added a touchdown and a pick there. The quarterback play in Las Vegas is just going to be what it is. Yeah, I mean, there's no way
Yeah.
around it. It's not going to be the best in the world. But you know, Bowers led the team in targets. Second was Devontae Adams, 5 for 59. Jacoby Myers had 3 for 61. Not really much else to cover here. So you ready to move on, Coach?
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, let's jump into the Broncos and the Seahawks. This was another game that was kind of unusual. The Seahawks win 26-20, and it was just one of those games where it just seemed like both sides weren't clicking like they were wanting
Hmm.
to. I mean, Gino started off rough. He went 18 for 25, 171 for a touchdown and a pick. Um, Kenneth Walker had a great day.
He did. Got a lot of carries. Geno Smith had an impressive run for a touchdown.
He did.
34-yard run for a touchdown.
So
Um,
I think there's hope for for the Seahawks to kind of pull things together and get a little bit better. But um, you know,
well, and the thing that jumps out at me about Seattle is I'm not really surprised by anything I see there. Like
mm,
Walker got a lot of carries, but if you go down to receiving, DK was, in my opinion, underwhelming as usual. He's just, I mean, he's a good receiver, but not top 10, not outstanding. JSN, not great. Like, I don't know. It just kind of feels like it went exactly like I thought it would go for most of those guys.
yep. And you know what? We got to give him a shout out because he deserves it. Tyler Lockett is just Tyler Lockett, man. He
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
consistently does it. 6 catches for 77 yards.
Yeah. And if you're a competing team and you think, well, this is the year I think I can win it, then I'm going to go try to get Tyler Lockett for cheap because he's old and you got a chance to get him for relatively cheap. So if you're trying to win, you're a top 3 or 4 team in your league, go see what you can get. Go
And
see if you can
we're
get Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, we're not saying he's going to be your wide receiver one, but he's a great flex. Or in the event you lose somebody to injury, bye week, suspension, that's things that we're not thinking about right now, but we're going to be thinking about in further into the season. And, Tyler Lockett is just a vet. He gets it done.
So dependable, man. So dependable.
Yeah. Well,
And on moving over to the Broncos,
yeah.
I'm going to jump over here to Bo Nix for a minute. Yeah, not a lot to love here. He struggled picking up blitzes. Similar at times to Bryce Young on that front, and I'm a big Bo Nix believer. He's a rookie, a lot of room for him to improve. I still think he's going to be good. One of the things I thought jumped out at me was that he wanted a completion no matter what. Like, and by that I mean he didn't necessarily go through his progressions. He took the simple, quick completion and moved on. That being said, I don't really feel like Sean Payton gave him the greatest opportunity to win the game by letting him throw it 42 times. Like,
that's not the recipe. That's not it.
Not as a rookie. That
Mm-mm.
maybe one day, not yet.
Yeah, 26 for 42, 138, no touchdowns, 2 picks. That's not helping the rookie out.
No, totally not. But I will say this: that does scream confidence. You know what I mean? That screams that Sean Payton does have confidence and does have belief in him. So
Because this
that
game
means
was
a
a
lot.
fight too.
Yeah. And if he's going to continue to do that, then I want a piece of the Broncos wide receiving core.
And
So
you mentioned that. Let's get into a name that we mentioned on our waiver show too, not just last week. Vele. 8 catches, 39 yards. He had 8 targets. He went 8 for 8.
Cortland Sutton had 12 targets. Reynolds had 8 targets. Like, there were so many opportunities out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those dudes are going to score if we continue to throw it like that. Now, hopefully they run the ball a little bit more, and that number goes from 42 to 25, 28. Yep. So that's probably where he needs to be consistently successful this year, I would think.
And interesting here too, Marvin Mims, no catches, no points, 1 target. So
yeah,
it's not been a great experience for Marvin Mims. You mentioned the running backs, underwhelming. I mean, Jaleel McLaughlin and Javonte Williams. I mean, they split work. Jaleel had 10 carries for 27 yards. Javonte had 8 carries for 23 yards. There's
if you don't
just
run the
wasn't a lot
ball,
there. Yeah, they didn't run the ball. They were throwing it all over the place. And I expect, let's watch Greg Dulcich going in the future too. I kind of expect him to pick it up a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, let's jump in now to my Washington Commanders took on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it was a routing. The score does not do it justice. The Buccaneers win 37-20. Baker Mayfield did whatever he wanted to do. He threw the ball all over the field, looked great, 24 for 30, 289 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Yeah, I mean, it was a great day.
Well, I have to say that it's possible that I didn't give Baker enough credit going in. Like, he was a guy I was kind of fading a little bit this summer, I thought. But he just picked right up where he left off and looked fantastic. This is a guy that has continued to improve every year in his career.
Every year. And you're exactly right.
It's impressive. 100%. He gives hope for these rookie quarterbacks, right?
He does. I mean, not everybody is an immediate, turn into a superstar. The success stories are great and all, but there's a lot of paths that take a little longer. I mean, look at Geno Smith. Ryan Tannehill took a little longer. Like, some of these guys take time to develop. And, Chris Godwin coming back into the slot, my word, that was a great situation. 8 catches, 83 yards, and a touchdown. He was fantastic. Rashad White had 6 catches. Mike Evans is spot on. He is Mike Evans, 5 catches, 61 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And frankly, he dominated Benjamin St-Juste. It's not even close. And looking at the run game, going to shout out my guy Bucky Irving. That's a name I've been preaching all offseason. Led the Bucs in rushing, 9 carries, 62 yards. He was explosive. He looked really good. Rashad White had 15 carries for 31 yards, so he outrushed Rashad White on fewer carries. So, the Bucs have already told us they're going to ride the hot hand. I'm interested to see what happens in this backfield.
But Rashad White was really good in the passing game.
Yes, he was. I was just about to say he was great in the passing game, 6 for 75. Bucky had 2 for 14 in the passing game. So this offense has pieces. and it's something to
And
monitor.
it's possible that the Commander defense is that bad too. I mean, let's just call it
And
what it is, especially the secondary, the back seven especially.
as a Commanders fan, I'm happy to report that the secondary's awful. I mean, it is
Yeah.
atrocious. The defense has a lot to improve on, and I don't know if it's going to happen. I was talking with someone on X, and I said, if I'm streaming a quarterback in redraft, I'm targeting Washington's defense. Just
Well, I think
they
that
couldn't
yeah,
stop
I
anything.
mean, I think that's true even in Dynasty with the flex positions. Like I'm looking and seeing who's playing the Commanders, who's playing the Panthers. Yeah, I'm getting those guys in there.
Yeah. So, well, let's talk a little bit about the Commanders. Jaden Daniels in his opening performance went 17 for 24, 184, no touchdowns, but he did add 2 rushing touchdowns on 16 carries for 88 yards. He looked uncomfortable in the pocket. I mean, there wasn't a lot of shots downfield. He missed one with Terry McLaurin that would have changed the day. I mean, it would have been a 60-yard touchdown. But I mean, he was running all over the place. But it was not pretty, guys. I mean, he was not sliding and running out of bounds. He was kind of just somersaulting or just rolling into defenders, and he lost his helmet twice. So it's a little bit concerning as a Washington fan.
Well, something I'll point out, which has become a trend lately in the quarterback and coaching world, is people are starting to little by little go away from sliding and go into rolling on your off shoulder. Like they feel like the slide opens up the head a lot more, and they kind of have them. They've been teaching a lot of quarterbacks now. If I'm a righty, I'm diving onto my left shoulder to try to avoid the head to head shot. So there is that possibly.
Okay.
Um, but he threw 24 times, but he dropped back way more than that. You know what
Oh
I
yeah.
mean? Like he had 24 attempts, but he dropped back probably
I'm gonna guess
30 to
32,
35
33.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I've said this before, and I think there's opportunity for Jaden Daniels to have the best rookie season on his feet alone. Um, he's going to make enough plays running around to where if you having to play one of these rookie quarterbacks this season, that he's going to have the best fantasy numbers this season. Now, down the road, when living as a quarterback is going to be determined by how well you play in the pocket. So a lot of that's going to happen. What remains to be seen over the next couple of years. But if you have him and you're having to play a rookie quarterback right now, Jaden Daniels is probably the guy you want to do. You want to be playing.
Yep. And we mentioned his rushing. Important to note, Brian Robinson led the way in this backfield. 12 carries, 40 yards, and a touchdown. Austin Eckler had 2 carries. So,
Hmm.
maybe they tip their hand here. Maybe next week they're going to try and even it out a little bit. I mean, I know they paid Eckler, but I mean, Brian Robinson was the guy. Um, Eckler did lead the team in receptions with 4 for 52. But I mean, outside of that, I mean, B Rob had 3 catches for 32 yards on 4 targets. The pass catchers
Well,
for Washington just didn't do a lot. There wasn't anything
well,
there.
right, and something to keep an eye on. I've mentioned this maybe on our first episode, but if you get a young guy that's uncomfortable in the pocket, what they start doing is checking it down a lot. So the answer then is, if I'm a fantasy owner, is I'm trying to get a hold of those running backs that are in that backfield, because they're going to get a lot of targets and a lot of catches, because when they're not seeing the field or they're not comfortable, they just start checking it down. All of a sudden, you've got backs that catch the ball 5 and 6 times.
All right, well, let's jump into the Cowboys took on the Browns. Cowboys win 33-17. Uh, Really, this score doesn't even show how this game was just dominated by the Cowboys from the start.
Yeah, Dak Prescott looked worth every penny, right? I mean, I thought he was fantastic. Like, his numbers don't show it because he dominated so much in the first half. Like,
Yeah,
they didn't
19
have
for
to throw the ball in the
32 and a
second half.
touchdown. Yeah,
I
I
mean, he
mean,
was
he was
phenomenal
great.
against the Browns defense that's supposed to be one of the best in the league, and he made it look easy in the first quarter and a half. And in the flip of that, the other quarterback was atrocious. Um, but they still, because they got behind, so he threw the ball a lot. But Deshaun Watson was bad,
Yeah,
really bad. And
I mean,
Cleveland fans are about fed up with that.
I think you're spot on. Watson's another name I wrote down for if I have a share, I'm trying to find my way out of it, and it might be hard to
Mhm.
do.
I
Yeah,
moved him in our fantasy draft. Like I moved him for a pick, and I couldn't be more glad about that right now.
yeah. I mean, there. I don't know what you do if you have Watson. I think I have one share remaining, and it's actually I think a one QB league. So, and he's my QB3. So I'm not too worried about it. I don't know how I ended up with three, but I did. Um, well, let's talk about the rushing game for Dallas, and before we jump over to the Browns a little bit more, Zeke led the way with 10 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown. Rico had 8 carries for 26 yards. Not necessarily the best day, but CeeDee Lamb looked great. 5 catches for 61 yards, added 3 carries for 25 yards. It was a solid day for him. But again, he didn't really have to do much because this game was over at the start.
Yeah, totally. I mean, CeeDee Lamb's still awesome. I mean, he's still
Yeah.
maybe the top 3 receiver in the league without a doubt.
Yeah.
Jake Ferguson and his injury is something to keep an eye on. Um, Big Ferguson fan here. He had a solid day to start with. Got hurt early in the game, but it looks to be he got good news week to week. So there's actually a possibility. I saw there's actually a outside chance he plays this week. If not, he could just sit 1 week and play the following. So things came out good there. Still a guy, tight end I really want to have, and I really want to play.
I agree. I mean, he's someone I'm not necessarily fading. I mean, the injury hurts. So, I mean, you can go check and see if Schoonmaker's on your waivers. Maybe try and buy low if you want to take that route. But there's other tight ends you could try and get too. I mean, there's ways around it. Do you have any interest in
Mhm.
Schoonmaker?
A little bit, just as a backup plan, but not a lot. Like I don't think Ferguson's going to miss a ton of time. If I have another option, I'm just going to play that for a couple weeks. That's kind of really the angle I've taken. Like I've
Sure.
got Cole Kmet as my second tight end. I'm just going to play him this week if Ferguson doesn't play, and then hopefully I can pivot back to Ferguson next week.
All right. Well, so we mentioned Deshaun Watson not looking great 24 for 45, 169 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 picks. Jerome Ford led the backfield, 12 carries, 44 yards. Unfortunately for the Browns, the leading pass catcher and David Njoku did get hurt, and he's going to miss some time.
Yeah, and that's bad news because he's right there as a top 10 tight end also. And honestly, I'm not. Yeah, I don't know that he can. There's really a great replacement there that's gonna matter. So if the Watson situation gets worse.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at Jared Judy, and excuse me, Jerry Judy. He had 3 catches for 25 yards, had a touchdown, but I mean, I'm still not really interested in the Judy experience. Amari Cooper didn't really do much, 2 for 16. I mean, it was just a bad day.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, not much to see there. I don't think.
Yeah. Well, then let's jump into our Sunday night game. That was a fun game, great game to watch. Um, Matt Stafford returns to Detroit. Jared Goff takes on his old team, and the Lions win 26-20 in overtime. And this was a fun game, back and forth. I mean, the quarterback play was just great. The Lions dominated the line of scrimmage. Let's start with the Lions. Jared Goff goes 18 for 28 with 217 and a touchdown and a pick. Pretty solid day for him. What do you think, Coach?
He's just so efficient. I mean,
Hmm.
he has really played well. Keeps getting the best of the Rams too. That stings a little bit for the Rams fans, I'm sure, but he's just really solid. David Montgomery and Gibbs still kind of a split, but Montgomery's the hammer. When it gets down around the goal line, like it's hammer time with Montgomery. They love his toughness. Like he is a Campbell kind of guy, so he's going to keep getting carries. And
And
I mean, heck, you can't blame him.
yeah, they don't say like all the news about David Montgomery from Campbell is so positive. Like he loves the guy, loves
Yeah,
him.
yeah,
17 carries for
because he
91 yards and a touchdown, and he dominated in that
he's
overtime.
just tough as nails, just so tough, and Campbell loves it. Heck, I can't blame him.
I think I watched the game and I can't remember exactly how many times it was, but I believe on that overtime drive they got the ball first. They ran the ball every single time except for once where they threw a little swing pass, and it was just
Yeah,
down the gut. I
yeah,
mean,
it was impressive.
Gibbs played well, 11 for 40. The pass catching work was probably the most surprise to people. I mean, welcome to the show, Jamison Williams. 5 catches,
Yeah.
121 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, he had a great
People
day.
have been he was getting hyped up in camp, and I'm just starting to see why. Um,
9
I
targets. He
think
led the team in targets.
I think his come up is gonna hurt St. Brown moving forward slightly. Like I think St. Brown's still really good. I'm not saying that, but I mean, when
Yeah.
anytime a receiver steps up to take away some target share, it's going to affect the guy a little bit.
I mean, Amon Ra had 3 catches for 13 yards. That's not gonna be the normal. I mean, he's gonna be better.
Right. Totally.
Laporta had 4 for 45.
Hmm.
But this is
Yeah.
a good
And
offense. You want
Laporte is
pieces.
awesome. Dang right. Absolutely. It's electric. I mean, all these guys can score.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Rams a little bit. I mean,
Well, the
McVay.
same is true there, right? Like
Yeah.
McVay's phenomenal. Matt Stafford is phenomenal. Matt Stafford is the most underrated quarterback in the NFL, maybe the most underrated quarterback of all time. I mean, the dude is so good.
Uh,
It doesn't
Taken for
matter who's
granted,
playing wide
really.
receiver for him. It just really doesn't matter. But goodness gracious, Cooper Cup had 21 targets, man. Like
Whew,
21
whew.
targets. That is unbelievable to me.
Yeah. Matthew
Big news
Stafford.
is
Yeah.
I was gonna say big news is the Puka injury. Um,
Yes.
going on IR. So he's gonna miss at least 4 games. He'll be back at some point. Hopefully back just long enough to save some of you guys' season, including mine. Um, but I'm looking on the waiver wire personally, trying to get a piece of Tyler Johnson. Like I think he's going to come in and help that offense a little bit. I put in a waiver claim for him myself. Um, just he had 7 targets, and didn't play a quarter and a half. So that's a guy who may have got 9 to 10 targets probably. So
5 for
that's a piece of the
79.
offense you want to get. Yeah,
5 for
good,
79.
good athlete there. Yeah,
Yeah. Stafford finished the day 34 for 49, 317 in the air, 1 pick and a touchdown. Kyron Williams, 18 carries for 50 yards. You mentioned Cooper Cup's 21 targets. He had 14 catches for 110 yards and a touchdown. And it feels like he still has 10 more catches coming his way right now. I mean, it was
yeah, totally.
his toe tap catch on the sideline was unbelievable. I mean, he got
And
both
that's
feet down twice. And it was
And that's not going to change. He's going to get 10 targets at least every game moving forward, especially without
mhm.
Puka there. Every game,
And
he's going to get 10 to 15 targets.
shout out another waiver claim and deep dive player I've been preaching all off season. Colby Parkinson, 4 catches for 47 yards. He had 5
Yeah.
targets. I've been screaming all off season, follow the money. He's gonna play, and he did
Yeah.
just that. He was on the field whole time.
Yep. You're right. 100%. He looked good out there too. Very
Hmm.
Higby like.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned Puka, 4 for 35. He was having a solid game prior to the injury. I mean, he got injured early. Um, he had
He would have called
a
8 to
rush
10
as well.
balls if he'd stayed in the game. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's no fear for Puka other than the injury. So we just have to wait
Yeah, and I
now.
think he's so young they're playing it extra cautious there too.
Yeah,
So I
and,
wouldn't
and
be
I think they know
worried
they're
long.
good. They know they're good, and they're playing for more than just right now. They're playing for January and February. So they want Puka then.
Yep. Totally agree.
All right. Well, let's jump into the Monday night game. Last night we had the San Francisco 49ers taking on the New York Jets, and Jets. What happened? Woof. Um, San Francisco
Aaron,
wins 32 to
Aaron,
19.
sorry. Yeah, I
No,
was
you're
say Aaron
fine.
Rodgers coming back from a long layoff. Like little rust there. He got better as the game went, but it was a little bit too late.
It was just too late. Brock Purdy, 19 for 29. He was fine. 231, no touchdowns. But the big name here is Jordan Mason. So McCaffrey was out, looking like he might be out again this week. Jordan Mason, 28 carries for 147 yards. I mean, he played
Yeah,
great.
definitely a guy you want to get a piece of in the short term while you can.
And my question to you is, if you've got him, are you selling him?
100%, because
Yeah.
McCaffrey will come back and take over that role.
I've seen a lot of people selling him for seconds, just whatever they can get, whatever year. So I think he's someone I would move if I can. If I need him because I'm the McCaffrey owner, that's fine. That's a different story. Um, The pass catchers, it was a solid day for everyone. Juwan Jennings, 64 yards, 5 catches. Debo, 5 catches, 54 yards. Kittle, 4 catches, 40 yards. The ball was just spread around. They scored
Yeah.
on, what was it, 9 straight drives?
Yeah, and Shanahan continues to do work, right? Just good offense, period. A
He,
lot of
he's
playmakers. This is a
he's a super
Super
genius.
Bowl possibility again.
Yep. So, well, let's jump to the Jets side. And you mentioned Aaron Rodgers looking a little rusty. Started to warm up a little bit, but it was just a little too late. 13 for 21, 167 in the air with a touchdown and a pick. Brees Hall, 16 carries, 54 yards, and a touchdown. Other than that, it was just kind of not much happening. Alan Lazard had 6 catches for 89 yards, and Garrett Wilson had 6 catches for 60 yards.
Yeah, and Garrett Wilson, like 11 targets. He's gonna be good. Like
Yeah.
I don't feel if he got an end zone, we'd feel way different today. I thought
No.
he's gonna be really good.
Well, real quick, Coach, I think that wraps up all of our games here. Let's jump into the into our waiver picks. Is there anybody out there that you're looking for?
Tyler Johnson. I mean that in Dynasty we talk about this a lot. There's not a lot of other options out there, so you got to look. You got to look deep. Tyler Johnson's a guy. Foster Moreau at tight end had 4 or 5 catches for the Saints. Like that's a guy I'm looking to get to just to see what happens.
Yeah, other than the names we've already said, Vele, if he's out there, I'd go grab him. Mac Hollins, that's someone that I'm just intrigued to see what happens. Great offense. Can he develop to be a guy that's involved a lot? To be determined. Outside of that, it doesn't really change much from who we had before. But, any final remarks there, Coach?
No, yeah, I'm with you. You always got to keep your eyes open, keep your head up, and your feet moving, as my favorite football coach would say.
Yeah, there we go. So, well, we appreciate everyone for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on X at the FF Mediators, and we'll be continuing to put out Dynasty Fantasy Football content. If you have a trade that's been sent to you, or you've recently completed a trade, please be sure to send it to us so we can review it and we can throw it up on here and let everyone else see it too. And if we might be looking to do some team reviews in the future. So if you've got a team that you want to be featured on the show, message us over on X at the FF Mediators, and we'll see if we can't get something going. Otherwise, I think that's all for us, Coach.
Sounds good, man.
All
Appreciate
right.
you guys listening.
Yeah. Till next time. Thanks, y'all.